Lesson 4 for October 19 through 25, Facing Opposition. Wednesday, October 23. Nehemiah takes action in 444 BC. Question, read Nehemiah chapter 4. What did the Jews do under Nehemiah's leadership to stand up to opposition? Why was it important for them to prepare themselves to fight rather than just do nothing, believing that God would protect them? Nehemiah chapter 4, beginning at verse 1, But it so happened, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant, and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, Whatever they build, if even a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn your reproach on their own heads, and give them as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity, and do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have proved you to anger before the builders. So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together as up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now it happened, when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs and Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry. And all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God, and because of them we set a watch against them day and night. Then Judah said, The strength of the labourers is falling, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. And all our adversaries said, They will neither know nor see anything, till we come into their midst and kill them, and cause the work to cease. So it was, when the Jews who dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, From whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. Therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall, at the openings, and I set the people according to their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked, and arose, and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And it happened, when our enemies heard that it was known to us that God had brought their plot to nothing, that all of us returned to the wall, every one to his work. So it was, from that time on, that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears, the shields, the bows, and wore armour. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. Those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves, so that with one hand they worked at construction and with the other held a weapon. Every one of the builders had his sword girded at his side as he built, and the one who sounded the trumpet was beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the rulers, and the rest of the people, The work is great and extensive, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Wherever you heard the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. So we laboured in the work, and half of the men held the spears from daybreak until the stars appeared. At the same time I also said to the people, Let each man and his servant stay at night in Jerusalem, that they may be our guard by night and a working party by day. So neither I, my brethren, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me took off our clothes, except that everyone took them off for washing. After starts and stops, the people began working again. The Jews prayed, and then Nehemiah set up an active guard. The people rotated through shifts during the day and night time in order to be prepared for any looming attacks. Nehemiah also organised the people around the wall with weapons so that each family was ready to fight. Additionally, he divided his servants into 2 groups, with one working and the other holding weapons. There also were special provisions for all those who worked on the wall, as they were closest to the danger. Each one of the builders held a sword with one hand, and with the other added bricks or stones and mortar to the wall. They were prepared to face the opposition. They did their part. God did the rest. Nehemiah's faith in God's protection is inspiring. However, he didn't sit on the couch and expect God to do everything. They prepared by doing the best of their abilities. The 2 passages, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses," in chapter 4 of Nehemiah, verses 13 and 14, and "Our God will fight for us," in verses 19 and 20, are some of the most inspirational statements found in the Bible. The Jews could have stopped building once again because of the persistent opposition, but this time, instead of being overcome by fear, they held on to the promise that God would fight for them. When we encounter opposition to the name of God, to our beliefs, or to what God calls us to do, we should remember that God will fight for us. In the end, the Jews realized that the Lord was behind what they were doing, and this gave them the courage to press on ahead. So, to finish the day, why is it so important to know that what you are doing is God's will? Thus, an important question to ask is, how do I know if what I am doing is God's will? This week's lesson has been read by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. It is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and through the services of Christian Services for the Blind. A video of this podcast also occurs on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.